Now we're going to begin. Okay, cause number 55657 in the interest of the Browning children. I know everybody's been sworn, but Mr. Stevens is our new reporter today. So everybody, let's raise our hands again. Everybody's going to testify. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Stevens, this is in the interest of those. They are not here, but they are represented by Miss Dory Mystic, who is their attorney ad litem, and Miss Leanne Senna is there she is their CASA advocate, and her supervisor is Miss Claire Moore, and she's here. State is represented by Mr. Chuck Sturmer as the assistant Coryell County attorney. Mr. Hector Burgos is the caseworker, and his supervisor is Miss Autumn Butler-Schaller. The mom's Miss Stephanie Polk, and she's here. Her attorney is Miss Joanne San Miguel. Is she here? Joanne, oh, there you are. Okay, up in the corner. Okay, she's here. Mr. Frank Browning is dad, and he's here from the Coryell County Jail, and he's represented by Miss Michelle Cummings. Let me see. I think did I get everybody? Oh, Casey Jewell is on here in a picture. She's placement of the boys, and that's everybody. Before we begin, I had some orders from last time. I asked CPS to contact Dad's therapist and then the Coryell County Jail within 24 hours after our last hearing to see if they could continue to provide services for Mr. Browning while he's incorporated and report the findings to all parties. Mr. Burgos, what was the outcome of that?
Yes, Your Honor. I contacted the jail, and they say that they cannot offer the services, allowing the virtual therapy while he's incarcerated there.
Okay, thank you. And I also ordered CPS and ad litems 24/7 access to the home, and each were to visit before today, unannounced, and take pictures. Mr. Burgos, did you do that?
Yes, Your Honor. We visited the home on 1/14.
Okay, thank you. CASA, did y'all?
Yes, Your Honor. We went yesterday.
Okay, Miss Mystic?
Yes, I went Friday.
Okay, good. And did the three of y'all, did Miss Paul and the grandparents know that y'all were coming? No? Okay.
No, I was met with some resistance from the grandfather. He said you did not order me to go, but then I told him I would respect whatever he wanted. It's his home. And he then said, you can come in and look around, but he did not believe that you ordered. And I said, you said ad litems, obviously, but they let me in, took me everywhere in the house, or Stephanie did.
Okay, good. Okay, and county attorney to confer with the DA's office about Mr. Browning's criminal case status before today. Mr. Sherman, what did you find out about that?
Judge, I wasn't able to get anybody from the DA's office to call me back, but I did get some updates just on the cases. Mr. Browning has a 2021 conviction for manufacture, delivery of a controlled substance, and he was sentenced to 10 years. It was probated for 10 years. The DA's office filed a motion to revoke on that case, I believe on February 29th of last year. It was set for a hearing on September 27th. He did not appear, so there was an FTA, we had an FTA, and they issued a warrant, which led to that arrest. But he was also set on a 2024 new manufacturing delivery of a controlled substance. That indictment was from March of 2024. He failed to appear on that as well on September 27th, and that led to the arrest. As far as those cases go, I don't see that there's any current settings on those. His attorney in the newer case filed a waiver of arraignment in December of 2024. It looks like he was supposed to have an arraignment hearing at the beginning of December. They filed a waiver of arraignment, and there's no current settings on either of those cases. He also does have an unfiled hindering apprehension or prosecution of a known felon from December of 2023. I imagine that they'll probably deal with that whenever they deal with those other criminal cases in the 1245 or some other deal that they'll work with him on that. But that's the update that I have right now. There's not a whole lot of updates as far as where the cases are going, but that's just where they're at.
So bottom line, Mr. Browning's just sitting in the Coryell County Jail waiting to get a court date to go to two hearings, right?
And that's what it sounds like to me.
Do they not? I don't know anything. You know, every court does it different. Once you have one court date, do they not schedule another one further out, or how does that work?
Well, whenever they filed the waiver of arraignment, I think that it probably a new date didn't get set at that time, but I'm sure they're going to. But as you know, in the criminal world, it doesn't really move at a very fast pace. Is the revocation motion to adjudicate or a request for adjudication, or a motion to revoke probation? Motion to revoke probation. Okay. Thank y'all for doing all that. That's I think Mr. Browning didn't really know what was going on, so that's okay. Let me look at where we were last time. Last witness I show, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, is Miss San Miguel was questioning her client, Miss Pollock. And so we finished, and then she was subject to Miss Cummings questioning her. Is that what y'all recall? Okay. Miss San Miguel, you're looking perplexed. Is that, but you agree? Yes.
Yes.
Miss San Miguel went to inauguration, y'all. So I don't know if you're still there, but that was pretty cool.
I just arrived, picked up my dogs, and zoomed in. I barely made it, but I was able to get a bathroom break and eat, so I'm ready.
Was it wonderful?
It was a lot of waiting. So it was very neat. And I think I've got a photo of the Vance kids like playing on the ground and kind of goofing around and stuff like that. And got to see them up close and personal. But other than that, it was cold and waiting in line because we had tickets from my sister works with a representative's wife is how we got the tickets. And so we had certain seating, and then they changed it from outside to indoors, and then it was a free-for-all. You had to stand in line to then get a ticket, but we made it in, and it was kind of crazy. But yeah, I wouldn't do it again.
You wouldn't do it again?
No.
Was it really cold?
Yes, but when I came here, I had several layers. I'm layered up now, but I actually came back to Texas like, oh, I'm taking off this jacket, taking off this scarf. I had 2 scarves, 2 sets of gloves, 2 sets, under lots of layers. And here it's cold, but it's not as cold as it was up there. So
I bet, but
I had to be.
I never knew it to be inside before. So, whether you voted for Trump or voted for Biden or didn't vote at all, it's just kind of an experience to be able to go, I'm sure. Yeah, it was just history. And that's why I wanted to be there. Like I said, I'm not, the biggest fan, but I need an experience for history. And so I'd be more apt to go in like July, but that's just me. So, yeah. Okay, well, congrats. We're glad you went. Glad you got back. I know I saw you. I was like, oh, she's not there anymore. So, okay. So Miss Pollock was passed. So Miss Cummings, do you have any questions of Miss Pollock?
I do not, Your Honor.
Excuse me? I'm sorry.
I do not.
You do not? Okay. Miss Mystic, do you have any questions of Mom?
I'm so sorry. I was distracted. I apologize.
Any questions of Miss Pollock?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Sturmer?
I don't have any questions, Judge.
Okay, let me look through my notes and see if I had any. Ms. Pollock, did you tell me who paid for the professional cleaning of the house?
My in-laws.
Okay. And why did we never get a written report?
I sent the invoice to the lawyers, which would be my lawyer. I believe I sent it to Ms. Cummins, and I sent it to Hector, and I believe I sent it to CASA.
Okay, but invoice is different than a report.
Well, it was just the deep cleaning of the house, not the drug test
Okay.
thing.
Why are you not in college now?
Well, I was, based off what I was made to understand is I was told that it was a luxury I couldn't afford right now and that I needed to get a job. And then, of course, going into inpatient kind of postponed the college either way. So,
Okay, but you got out of that in like September, didn't you?
yes, but like I said, I was under the impression that I needed to focus on getting a job, not continuing college. So
Okay.
I haven't got back into it.
But you don't have a job now, do you?
I've been looking. But I haven't worked since before I got pregnant with our oldest. So
Right.
I'm having a little bit of trouble there.
Okay. And you said how many hours of college do you already have?
I would have to look, but I think I have maybe a semester and a half because I've been postponed. I don't have very much longer.
You don't have very much longer to go, or you don't?
I don't have much longer to go.
Okay. And ma'am, this is our third case involving drugs. Is that correct? CPS case involving drugs. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you been together with Mr. Browning?
We've known each other since we were 14 and we're 36.
Okay, 22 years, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How was the house when people did the three different visits recently?
It's very much clean. My room's a little cluttered because I'm trying to paint and live in the house at the same time. But I've done some cleaning since Mr. Hector and Autumn came. Gotten some more stuff taken care of. There are a few things that I can't move on my own. So I'm struggling a little bit, but I'm getting it done.
Okay. Did you talk to your father-in-law about that Facebook post? That was
I told him about it, but we didn't really discuss it, no.
Don't you think that the threatening post was something you probably needed to visit with him about?
Well, it wasn't intended as a threat, honestly. And I don't know that his part would necessarily be constituted towards the threat. However, it's been removed. The whole thing has been removed.
Would it surprise you that I took it as a threat? Because it could even have affected me.
I'm sorry. That was not my intention at all.
Why did you not give the boys anything for Christmas?
I have Christmas presents here. I told Brittany about it, and then I just didn't think to tell Hector about it because I was hoping to be able to give them to him myself, but.
Okay.
And I know last court date, Hector had mentioned that I didn't take anything to John for his birthday, but I did.
Okay. Have you been drug testing since we were in court last on what day was it? January 6th?
I drug tested, I think that day, no, the next day. And then I drug tested last week and I was supposed to drug test today, but due to the weather, A&D is not open.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I did speak to Hector and ask him if I could go in tomorrow.
Okay, what were the results of your 2 times since we've been in court last?
I'm not sure if they've been received or not.
Okay.
With the delay in some of my drug test results, I'm not 100% sure if Hector's gotten those.
Okay. Ma'am, you heard Mr. Browning talk about when he smoked meth in the garage. Did you smoke meth in the garage with him at that time? also?
I might have once or twice. The garage door does stay locked now. I'm working on cleaning that room as well. It's just some things have to be moved out there to paint in the house, and then I'm gonna have to move them back, and then I'm trying to get it all done. I really am.
Where were you and the children when those bullets came in through the wall?
My kids were in bed, and I was asleep in my chair right next to them because I'd been doing college work and just happened to pass out in the chair next to the bed. So my children were asleep.
Okay.
They slept.
Go
They
on.
slept through the whole thing.
Are the bullet holes still in the wall?
No, I've patched them.
Okay.
And the window that ended up getting a hole in it has been replaced. That was actually the first thing that got taken care of, was the window, and then I patched the holes in the walls.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions, Ms. Pollock? Miss Mystic?
I did. So I think Joanne did.
Oh, okay. Miss San Miguel?
Ms. Pollock, you stated previously that you believe some of the drug test results were inaccurate or incorrect, and you were going to compare your stubs to the ones that were taken. And had you had a chance to do that?
Yes, ma'am. I did it on Friday, I think, Friday or Saturday. Based off what drug test results were sent to us, I mean, to you and then to me, my donor number and my specimen number do match, but I honestly still don't think that some of those are my results. I'm not going to say that they aren't or not. I don't feel like they are, but like I just stated, the numbers do match up. So,
okay, and you're not denying any and all of the positives, just a couple of them. Is that correct?
yes, ma'am.
And could you say which states are the ones that you're questioning?
Well, like the ones that were for the last 3 weeks in December, I know that my samples were taped together, so I don't know why there was issue with those results. Just about all of the December ones, because I know I wasn't drinking in any of December. Just like I don't understand why the invalid counts against me. I know that was one of the tests they had to send off for further testing.
Okay, and did you also find that there were several tests that were missing results that were not published?
Yes.
And I understand you sent me a list of dates. Do you recall those dates that were missing?
I believe it was October 25th, November 1st, November, I want to say 6th. And I think there was one in December. I don't have the notebook that I wrote those dates down on right here, but I know there was like 3 or 4 or 5 of them missing.
Okay, and you sent me an email, and I think it included December 11th. Does that refresh your memory?
I believe so, yes. And I know, I think one of the end of December ones, we were still waiting on results for.
Okay, and so what you're saying is that you have some form of proof that you took the drug test and have proof of that date, but it's not in the reports of drug test results received, correct?
Yes, I kept all of the papers for every drug test I take, whether it be hair, nail, UA for drugs, or UA for alcohol.
Okay. And then is there any other clarification that you want to make at this time? You had mentioned that you brought some Christmas gifts to the children.
I have the Christmas gifts in the front room, the playroom, but I haven't taken them to them because I haven't been able to see them.
Okay,
but I did take my youngest birthday gifts to the last visit that I was able to have with them, which was October 23rd, I believe.
And did you provide Mr. Burgos or anyone at CPS with a list of any other available family placement options?
My in-laws, yes.
Okay. And are your in-laws the only available family placement for you?
Yes.
Okay. And since the last court date, have they contacted the department and have been willing to take a drug test?
Yes.
Okay. And that you're aware of, have they been able to take that drug test, or did they run into any problems like the closure for the holiday yesterday?
Well, we got my mother-in-law over there to do her drug tests that were ordered. But they closed at noon, and my father-in-law had gotten one of his appointments rescheduled to yesterday, so he ended up not getting to make it. He was going with me today, since today was my day. But with them being closed today, we're going to both go tomorrow.
Okay, so did your mother-in-law, you said that she made it to be tested. So did she in fact take it, or did something happen that she
Yes.
got diverted? Okay, so she took it.
Nope.
Okay, but your father-in-law has not taken the test yet. Correct?
No, he's going to go tomorrow, and
Okay.
as am I, since today was closed.
Okay, and to the best of your knowledge, do they have any criminal history?
No.
Do they have any CPS history?
No.
Do they have financial means to support your children?
Yes.
Okay. And would you and your husband be willing to move out of the home if they were awarded the children replacement?
Yes.
Okay. Now, since that date, last court date, we reported that we hadn't received any of the counseling reports. Since then, we have received them. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you've had a chance to review your counseling notes too, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything in there that you feel is necessary to dispute or clarify or expand on?
Maybe expand on it. They weren't very helpful. It was just like basically giving the rundown of what we had discussed that day, and it was only like 1 or 2 sentences, so it's not.
What is your understanding of the completion of your treatment with this counselor?
I'm sorry, I don't completely understand what you're asking.
Have you completed therapy as the counselor released you from counseling?
I have not been released. No, I actually have an email with more homework, but we haven't scheduled any future appointments yet because of today being court and not knowing how it would turn out.
Okay. Did you have a chance to discuss your progress?
Well, she tells me at the end of every session to hold my head up, that she loves the progress that I've made, that I'm doing great. She calls me her MVP, which I think is kind of cool, but.
Okay. Is it your understanding that whether or not there were any recommendations from the counselor as far as increasing visits or expanding the time frame for visits?
She had told me that she hadn't been asked from Hector, but I think that was prior to our last court date. I'm not sure exactly when. I think she had received a request of recommendations since, but she told me that she wanted Hector to do his home visit before she decided anything. I guess she wanted his opinion on what the home looked like before making any recommendations.
Okay, and that's your understanding as to why the counselor hadn't made any recommendations regarding you and visiting your children, correct? I
believe so, yes, ma'am. That's my understanding.
And have you brought up the issue with the counselor as far as wanting more time with the kids for increased visits?
I have a little bit, but not. We usually just focus on what the session is, that week's subject. And then she asked me how I'm feeling and, how I'm emotionally handling everything.
Okay, no further questions.
Thank you, Ms. San Miguel. Ms. Cummings, anything? No. Ms. Mystic?
I did have some follow-up. Do you believe that you're a drug addict?
I believe I was, yes.
What has your therapist said about all the positive alcohol tests?
Really hasn't. Like, we've discussed it a little bit, or I've told her that they were coming up positive, but like I have discussed, I'm not drinking, so I don't know why all of them are.
So you are, as we sit here today, denying that you consumed alcohol and that all of the tests.
Not all of them, no, ma'am.
Okay. But your December tests were all positive, correct?
I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure there were some that were still missing as far as I know.
So you didn't get the email or from your attorney that we got from Mr. Burgos saying that your December 26th test was positive?
I got the ones that were discussed for missing last court date. I don't think I received that one, no.
Okay. So did your therapist say anything like, gosh, you've got all these positive tests, but you're not drinking? I mean, how did you explain that? Or how do you explain that?
Well, I'm not drinking, so I don't know how else you would explain not drinking.
Okay. I had seen in one of the reports, and we may have talked about it before, did anyone shoot back that you know of in response to those shots being fired at the home?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. When I was at your in-laws' home Friday and you showed me around, there is, from you showing me around, it was, here's my room, here's the children's room that's going to be set up. They have not asked you to move out, your in-laws, have they?
No.
They haven't come to this court as a witness on any of the Zooms that we've come and said, those two are out. They got my grandchildren testing positive for meth a second time. That hasn't happened except what we've heard today. They've gone to drug test. Or you're going tomorrow, and I understand with the weather and everything. But up until we've heard today, have you seen anything that would show this judge that your in-laws want these kids?
My in-laws do want these kids, and
Right.
My father-in-law's literally sitting right here.
Oh, I know. So I understand when people say the words, but could you express the actions for this entire case that would show this judge what actions your parents have taken?
I mean, they've sat here at every court date. They sit here at every court date, but I mean, most of the time I don't even get to speak, ma'am. So they're not just gonna take over the court.
Okay. So you said they financially have the wherewithal to support the kids. They're obviously supporting you and have been, correct?
Yes.
Okay. But it's been pretty clear that had they had you and of course the father out of the home, they could have easily come to court to say, hey, they're out. This house, I paid for testing. I had a report done. These kids tested positive here because obviously y'all did and your children did. And it's not the first time. It's during times you've lived with your in-laws, right? So what actions have you seen that you can tell us other than your father-in-law sitting next to you and going to drug test tomorrow?
I mean, they called Hector and they asked to drug test. They asked to do visitation, and he told them that he wasn't aware that he was even supposed to be getting that done.
Well, how would any of us, I mean, this last court date's really the first time you brought up when we started talking about the threat that was perceived by you on that Facebook. Your father-in-law had expressed missing the boys.
Right.
Right? And then you did what you did, and I understand you're saying today you didn't mean it that way, and you explained that, but
I mean,
you're
myself
still in
and
the home. correct?
Yes, I'm still in the home.
You're painting your bedroom, correct?
Okay.
I mean, what steps have you made to get out of that house?
Well, I do have to have a job. I do have to have a vehicle. I can't just go without financial means to do so.
And as I was leaving that day, y'all let me know, wanted me to know that, just for my information, that the bullet holes that came really were more directed at Ashley Hutton's vehicle. Is that right?
I mean, there was 2 vehicles shot, but mostly hers. Yes, ma'am.
Right. What was the
And-
reason
and
for telling me that?
one of the CPS caseworkers in the very beginning of this case said that it looked like it was Ashley's fault. And that came from a CPS worker.
No, I'm asking, but you let me know that on Friday. You said, both of you, just to let you know, her car was shot more, right?
We were just letting you know that the way it looked. We don't know why it was shot at because we've been told numerous things. Just like we informed you, we were told that charges were being dropped by on the people that shot at the house.
Right.
We don't know.
And I understand. But you also heard testimony that Bragg Browning had gone to their home that morning, if I heard that
No.
correctly. Is that right? No? Okay.
My father-in-law had not gone to their home.
I'm so sorry, Frank. Excuse me. Wrong person.
He went to check out a vehicle, as far as I know, not necessarily to the guy's home. I don't know where those guys lived.
Okay, so him going and checking on a vehicle, none of those people that he saw where he checked on that vehicle were involved?
I have no idea. I wasn't there.
Okay, because I thought his testimony was he had gone to just check on a vehicle, and then later, I guess you were asleep, somebody where he had gone to check on the beating was one of the people in the vehicle that fired at the home.
That's what I have knowledge of as well, but I'm not 100% sure because I didn't go with him to check on the vehicle.
Well, I'm assuming you two talk. You live in the same home until he got picked up, right?
That's what I'm saying, as far as I know, but I don't know
Okay.
because I didn't see the guys myself. I don't know. Just like I didn't see the guys that shot at the house. I was asleep when the house got shot at.
Was Ashley with him when he went to go check on this vehicle?
I have no idea.
So, and maybe I'm wrong. I would think if my spouse had gone somewhere, came home, and then our house got shot, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I went and checked a vehicle. We would be talking about it. But y'all never had one of those hearts like, gosh, he went there that morning and then they came. I can't believe somebody came and shot the house. No?
Well, he said that they did, that it was the same people, but I don't know. Because I didn't see the house get shot at. I didn't go with him when he went and checked on that vehicle. I don't know. I still don't know what the guys look like.
I wasn't asking you what they looked like. I asked if Frank,
But I don't know.
if he ever talked to you about it.
The only reason I know their names is because that's what the cops told me.
Okay, thank you. Pass the witness.
Anybody else? Any questions? Paula? No?
I have a few questions, Judge.
Okay, Mr. Stern.
We've asked about getting the kids.
Ma'am, you've been giving us some pretty honest testimony about the drug use and such. And so I just want to ask you, do you believe that your children were in a safe and suitable environment at the time that they were removed?
I believe I could have been doing better, but yes, I do believe they were in a safe environment.
So are you telling this court that you believe that these children being exposed to meth to a point where they tested positive is safe for them?
No.
Not exactly, no.
Hold on.
No, it's not. It's
Hold
not
on.
safe.
Hold on, Ms. Pollock. Somebody is answering in the background, and I need whoever that is. If it's Mr. Brown and Grandpa, I need y'all to be quiet. This is or Ms. Pollock, you're gonna have to go somewhere else. So, sorry, Mr. Shermer. Can you ask that question again? And hold on, Ms. Pollock, you need to be able to answer these questions individually. Okay, I don't need anybody coaching you or telling you what to say. Okay.
He's not coaching me, ma'am. He's just irritated because it's his house. And like my in-laws have been asking since the beginning of my lawyer and my husband's lawyer It has been mentioned to Hector, so that it being acted like they haven't even tried is, excuse me.
Okay, well, if somebody wants to call him as a witness, they can, but he needs to be quiet, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Shermer, ask that question again for Ms. Pollock to be able to answer this time.
Do you believe it's safe for the children to be exposed to methamphetamines to the point that they're testing positive at such extreme levels on their hair?
I don't believe it's safe for them to be around drugs, no, but I did not do drugs around my children either.
Okay, is it safe for the children to be living in a home with somebody such as Ashley Hutton, who we all know you dislike and that you have lots of bad things to say about?
I wouldn't say bad things to say about, they're true, but,
So
no,
is it
it's not-
safe for the
it's not
children
safe
to be
for her.
around someone like her, ma'am?
I was answering your question, sir. No, it's not, and we did try and kick her out, but it's
And
also
is it safe that the
a pretty
children,
bad thing to keep kids homeless too.
is it
So to kick
safe
her out
for the
would be
children to
kids
be
homeless.
objection non-responsive?
Okay, Miss Pollock, just answer his question.
Is it safe for the children to be in a home where they are exposed to an extreme bed bug infestation?
How is that fair when nobody plans to get bed bugs?
Objection non-responsive.
This is the first time we've ever had them. I don't even know what to look for.
Ma'am, the question was a yes or no question. Please answer my question.
No,
Okay. Is it safe that the children were in the home during this drive-by shooting?
no,
Is it safe for your children to be living with somebody such as Mr. Browning, who has multiple pending charges for manufacturing and delivering controlled substances?
no,
So would you agree with me that all of these things happened that we have established are unsafe in the home of your in-laws?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
Would you agree with me that all of these things that we just went through all happened in the home of your in-laws?
Yes.
And so how can you stand here today request that your children be placed in that home when you've just testified that that is an unsafe environment?
Ashley no longer lives here. Frank no longer lives here. And the people that did the drive-by are in jail. But obviously, if they had an issue with whether it be Ashley or my husband, who no longer live in this house, how would that be a problem?
You would agree with me that all of those things happened in that home. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'll pass the witness.
Anybody else?
I just had one question. I'm sorry, Judge. Last one.
It's okay.
In the previous case, when your children tested positive for methamphetamines, were they around Ashley Hutton in your home?
No.
Pass the witness.
Anybody else? Miss Pollock, the prior removals, the kids were in the same home. They just weren't around Ashley Hutton. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So, Ms. Pollock, can you understand why I might have some concerns about placing children into a home with some grandparents where the kids have been removed 3 times before?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And, put yourself in my place or pretend like these weren't your kids. You wouldn't want your kids to go somewhere where they've been removed 3 times, would you?
No, ma'am.
And maybe you testified to this like 2 weeks ago or whenever on January 6th, but tell me how your kids tested positive, 2 of your 3 kids tested positive for methamphetamine.
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. And I mean, we're not just talking hundreds, we're talking like thousands, right?
I'm not 100%. I can't remember off the top of my head. No, ma'am.
Well, Brad didn't, right?
I don't think so.
Okay, the two littles did, correct?
I believe that was correct, yes.
And Brack was the only one at the time that was in school. Is that right?
No, Sean was in school as well.
Oh, he was? Same school?
Last year he went to May Stevens.
Was that like a pre-K?
It's an early learning.
Okay.
So pre-K.
Okay. Now, Miss Ann Miguel asked you some questions about, you said there were some tests that weren't published or in a packet. You remember that question?
Yes.
And is that because those tests were negative?
I don't think so. I think those were the ones that, like we discussed last court date, that were taking, the results were just taking longer than, yeah.
Okay, taking too long to get back, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. Now, who told you or your in-laws to go test?
My lawyer recommended that they call after that was discussed at our last court date about them having been requested to test and they hadn't been.
Okay.
So she did recommend that they try and see if they could.
Were they going to pay for it themselves?
No, it was discussed that the department would pay for it. So the department, they contacted Hector, and Hector sent an order over to, well, after checking with Autumn, he sent an order over to A&D, which is where I test. And like I said, my mother-in-law went yesterday, and then we were going to go, me and my father-in-law were going to go today, but they were closed.
Okay. Well, I'm not disputing that. I just have never heard that they allow people that aren't parents to a case to go test without the court actually ordering it.
Okay.
Okay. And just for the record, you haven't ever heard me order it, right?
No, not that I'm aware of, no, ma'am.
Okay. And Ms. Pollock, you know, we were here January 6th for trial. You know, and we've talked about this. You know, if they test yesterday, they test today, you know, we're not going to have the results back in time for trial, right?
Right.
So why didn't y'all think of this, or why didn't they go test on January 7th when maybe we could have had the test results back by today?
Well, we tried, they called Hector, but the order wasn't sent until Friday.
Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you, Ms. Pollock. Anybody have anything else? Okay, thank you. Next witness, Ms. San Miguel.
I call Mr. Browning,
Okay.
the father-in-law, not
Oh, not Frank.
yeah, not Frank,
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
or senior.
Okay.
Give him just a second to get back over here.
Okay, thank you.
He did excuse himself for, like you had asked.
Thank you, ma'am.
No problem.
Now, Ms. Pollock, you need to be able to stay around, okay? You need to be able to hear, okay?
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Mr. Browning. I am Joanne San Miguel, and I'm Stephanie Pollock's attorney, and I have a few questions for you, if you don't mind taking some moments. Now, I understand that although we haven't seen you here in court before today, that you have been present in the background, perhaps as a witness in prior court dates. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. About how many court dates have you attended, or that you have knowledge of?
Everyone, unless I was going to the VA.
Okay. And so have you had an opportunity to hear the circumstances that led to the removal of the children?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And do you understand that there has been a positive drug test of both parents, Frank Browning, Stephanie Pollock? Okay. And are you aware that there's also been positive drug testing of 2 of the 3 children too?
Yeah, that's what I was told. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So some of the questions that the court wants to know today is, given that information, what steps have you taken or do you feel necessary to protect your grandchildren from that type of situation?
Well, Frank is out of the house and has agreed not to come back so that my wife and I can possibly get the children. And we have asked about getting the children since the beginning of this case. I know it was mentioned earlier that why did we wait until now? That's not true. We have been asking since the beginning if my wife and I could take the children. I believe even Stephanie said that she would leave the house if that was what was required for my wife and I to take the children, to where it's just my wife and I and the 3 boys here. We've done everything that's been asked of us as far as the deep cleaning of the house, the repairs of the house, the drug testing of the house.
Okay, who paid for the
I did.
the cleaning of the house? Okay, who paid for the repairs of the house?
I did.
Okay, and who paid for the drug testing of the home?
I did.
Okay. Then, do you understand that there was a request or a court order for the house to be professionally cleaned, not one of the drug kits?
Oh no, we had the house professionally cleaned. Now in the drug testing kit, she looked into that and ordered what I thought was appropriate and tested it live on camera. And I believe sent everybody the results. The whole house has been repainted. I've had the whole house interior wise. There's not a wall in the house that has not been repainted and refinished. I spent quite a bit of my savings doing this to the home. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, let me stop there and ask about your financial situation. I understand you're retired.
I'm a 100% service-connected disabled veteran.
Okay.
I get my Social Security every month and I get my VA every month. And I'm P&T, what's considered permanent and total. So I have a guaranteed income for the rest of my life.
Okay. And with that amount of income, you feel confident that you can support your grandchildren?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, what knowledge do you have of any ongoing drug use?
Well, there is no ongoing drug use. I would, as I spoke to CASA and I spoke to CPS, there will be no further drug use. I was not aware of the drug use. I knew that my son was doing drugs, but I was not aware that he was doing them in the home.
Okay.
Had I known that, I would have thrown him out of the home.
Given
my
that
priority is,
right.
Go ahead.
Given that you reside in the home, do you see any possible way that the children could have been exposed to drugs?
Well, the children are in the other end of the house. My wife and I, we have a split plan in our home. My wife and I live on one end of the house. The children lived on the other. So we were not back there 100% of the time, if rarely ever, unless we went back there to ask a question or get the kids ready for school, something like that. I wish I'd kept a closer eye on it now.
Did you ever see any signs of any drug use or indication of drugs?
Not in the home. I knew that my son was doing drugs, and that's a terrible thing. If you've ever had a child on drugs, it's a heck of a thing to deal with. I would speak to him constantly about straightening up, but you can only do so much. So my concern were the grandkids. They were and still are my number one concern. And my wife and I have said from the beginning, we're willing to do whatever has been asked of us to get those grandkids back with us. And I believe we've met that burden and done everything that was asked of us.
Do you understand where the court may be coming from, and that it's not that what they ask of you, but what you do on your own? And they want to
Yes,
know why more hasn't been done on your end, such as taking a drug test.
When that young lady and her children moved in our home did not look like it did when the children were taken. They simply overpowered us. My Frankie begged for us to take her in because she was homeless. Her and her children were on the street. I felt sorry for the kids, not the adults, the kids. She had 4 children also. It's not their fault that their parents are incompetent. I don't care what word you want to use, but I felt sorry for them. But it just overwhelmed me and my wife as far as trying to keep up with the home. We would clean constantly, and right behind us, of course, they were messing up the house. It was just too much. We wanted to evict her from the home, and we finally did. And since then, my home has finally come back to normal again. As everybody saw when they came to visit this week, our home is beautiful inside. My wife and I have worked our lives for this house. We're very proud of this home. What happened got out of our control.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You mentioned an eviction. Now that eviction was filed by you and your wife, correct, and paid for?
Yes, ma'am.
By you?
Yes, we filed for eviction and finally got her out of here.
Is there any agreement or understanding with Stephanie Paulk as far as her residing in the home while your son is in jail, or her needing to leave the residence as well?
As I was proud of the fact that she was going to college and trying to better herself. And I know that she's not doing any more drugs. As long as she was allowed to be here, I had no problem with that. Now, if it was a requirement in order to get the children for her to leave, she's more than willing to do that. I would like to see her finish her last semester of college, get her degree, and better herself for herself and her children. But we will do whatever it takes for those kids. If she has to go somewhere else and stay with a girlfriend while she finishes her college, I'm sure she would be willing to do that, to where my wife and I can take care of these 3 boys. There's no doubt in my mind. And we could do that with just my wife and I in the house.
You mentioned
that's required.
You've kept up with this case, and you've talked about your wanting the kids throughout the case. Who did you speak to?
Oh, we've spoken to everybody. I've spoken to Hector. I've spoken to, I know Stephanie has passed that along to you and to Frank's lawyer. Everybody involved in the case, we've been asking about us taking the kids from the very beginning.
Do you recall the months or the dates or times that you spoke with Mr.
Right after the children were taken, within weeks of the children being taken, Stephanie offered to move out. Frank offered, they both offered to move out of the house if we could get the kids back, my wife and I. But we were stonewalled. We were told, no, you're not even an option. We were told that by CPS that, oh, we're not even going to consider you right now.
Who in CPS told you that?
I don't know why it was said that we haven't been here trying to get these kids the whole time.
Who in CPS told you that you were not to be considered as an option? Do you recall?
One of the young ladies that first showed up. I'm not familiar with everybody's names like Stephanie is.
Do you know the titles, like investigator, case worker?
Melina Gardner and Madeline Miller were 2 of them that told my in-laws that.
Okay,
sorry.
Don't want to sit down.
Were you asked to provide any information or complete a caregiver form that had your personal information on it that they could?
No, we were never even offered that option.
Okay. Were you asked to provide your birth date, social security number, any
No,
employment or history regarding CPS or criminal history?
no, ma'am.
Okay.
We've never had any history with CPS.
Okay. Have you or your wife had any prior criminal history?
My wife had absolutely none. I got in trouble one time when I was in college, right after I got out of the service, back in 1981, I believe it was. I got in trouble, and that's right after I got out of the service, and I was pretty, as you can imagine, I believe it was possession of marijuana and possession of cocaine. That was in 1981, and I'd never been in trouble before, and they gave me what was called in Texas at that time unadjudicated probation. In other words, I was never convicted of the crime as long as I complete my probation, which I completed perfectly. That taught me my lesson right there. But
so your record was
you have to
clear in your
understand that right after I got off active
Hold on.
duty.
Stop. Mr. Stevens and all of us can only get one at a time. So, Mr. Browning, just hold on until Ms. McGill asks you a question, okay?
Okay.
After you successfully completed your probation under deferred adjudication, your record was cleared?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and since that date, you have never been arrested or charged with anything else? So your record remains clear?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now, you understand that there was a post and some information passed along from your Facebook page that was perceived as a threat?
If you'll read that, nothing I said. There was one of my military buddies that made a comment on that post. That was not written by me or Stephanie. That was a comment that was written by a buddy of mine on that post, which you can look at the post and see. I never said anything. I never even answered it. And what he was doing was he was simply using military terms answering my thing, hang in there, keep firing down range, keep your head up. There was nothing there meant as a threat. He was simply trying to boost my morale using military slang. There was nothing there directed at anybody. He doesn't even know who we'd be talking about right now, as far as that young lady that lived here. And you folks, he knew nothing about that. He was simply just trying to boost my morale.
Thank you. Nothing further. I pass the witness.
Ms. Cummings? No questions?
Your Honor.
Thank you. Miss Mystic?
So, sir, if it says that you were convicted under a deferred probation in 1985 for delivery, was that in Jefferson, Texas?
Jefferson County, Texas, in Beaumont.
Yes, sir. Right, Jefferson County.
I know it was 1981. I didn't think it was 85. 85 would have been when it ended, I believe, when I got off probation.
No, so
they did not make me complete the whole probation term before releasing me.
Offense date February 15th, 1985. Charges filed March 28th, 85. Control, possession, and that was cocaine, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I was in college at Lamar University at the time.
I understand, and people have passed, but were you sitting next to your daughter-in-law on January 6th when I asked about you having a criminal history of your son? I said your father even had. You've never told your son that you had the same problem he did with drugs, that you had an issue with drugs at one time, did you?
Oh, yes. I talked to him many times about his drug use.
Okay, because he denied ever knowing. Go ahead.
He denied never. I find that hard to believe. I've sat and talked with him many times about how I learned the hard way and that there was no future in it. Of course, I'm trying to, give him fatherly advice.
So here's my question. The last court case, you appeared, you talked, you were involved in the last court case. Remember that?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And we returned the kids, I think, or recommended returning, and the judge ordered it 6 months. You recall that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And what I thought I heard you say today is they're my number one concern, right? The grandchildren.
That's correct.
And you would do whatever it takes for them. Is
Yes,
that right?
ma'am. Yes,
So
ma'am.
my confusion comes, your grandchildren tested positive for meth in our second
Okay.
case.
Okay.
You allowed them, your son and daughter-in-law, to live in your home, and the children were returned to them in your home, correct?
Correct.
Okay. They both test positive for meth. And the
Okay.
children, 2 of your 3 grandchildren test positive for meth. And as we sit here today, who lives in your home, sir?
My daughter-in-law, my wife, and I.
Thank you. You also said that no one ever asked you to drug test. Do you recall when Maddie Miller had effects from what she perceived to be drugs in your home, said you and your wife may have been exposed, y'all need to go drug test? Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
And you said, we're going to go drug test.
Ma'am, I was advised by my daughter-in-law's attorney not to.
Okay. So all of this talk, I'll do whatever.
Have you ever specifically asked us to drug test? We would have done it in a moment. We have
Maddie
never,
Miller did.
until now, been asked to drug test.
I didn't. Who asked you to drug test in this case? Since that first
I
time.
believe in last court, you were asked for the grandparents to drug test.
I think the argument was y'all hadn't done anything because your words are, I'll do whatever. So I want to get this straight. At the beginning of this case, you were asked to drug test and you didn't drug test because you're saying the attorney told you not to, correct?
That is correct. Absolutely. I will swear on the Bible. I will take a polygraph test.
And when you drug test, I guess she said you're going to go tomorrow. What's it going to be positive for?
For CBD. For CBDs.
Do you smoke
Because
marijuana?
I take CBD. The VA is aware that I take CBDs in place of hydrocodone.
Okay, so you've got a
used to have to-
prescription.
Excuse me? No, I don't have a prescription. They would write me a prescription for 8 hydrocodones a day, but I think it's a lot safer to take something CBD than it would be to take 8 hydrocodones a day.
So that doesn't have anything to do why you hadn't tested.
No, ma'am. Absolutely
Okay, 'cause you
not.
continued using marijuana, correct?
I've told, since you can check my VA record, I've told them since day one that I use the CBDs, and they actually said, well, if you use the CBDs, you can't take the hydrocodones. I told them that's fine. I would rather take the CBDs than a heavy narcotic any day. It helps with my PTSD. It helps with my leg pain. And it has nothing to do with drug testing.
Okay. Then if you had a history back in the 80s,
Yes,
you've
ma'am.
talked to your son so that he doesn't go down that road.
Yes, ma'am.
Why in the world you are a grandparent that had grandchildren test twice in your home for meth? In your home for meth. And the people that did it are your son and daughter-in-law. Ashley Hutt wasn't living there the second case, was she?
Excuse me?
Ashley Hutton was not living in your home using meth the time your grandkids were taken. The case before this case.
She wasn't? I thought she was. Okay.
You thought Ashley Hutton's been living with you about 2 to 3 years?
No, she'd been with us just under 2 years.
So when they came, what I heard you say is you and your wife got, she held control over you. Y'all would clean up, and those kids and her would just make a mess. Is that, no?
That is correct.
Okay. And as we sit here today, and I understand y'all haven't, I guess you've had, from the time we got in this case, those kids, I mean, they have no bedrooms set up, right?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
I got brand new bed. I have brand new beds for them.
And everything is all set up.
Yes, ma'am.
Which room?
But we have one bed
is
frame.
Stephanie letting you know that's not true, isn't it, sir?
Ma'am, it is true. Would you like me to drag it out here? I just bought 2 brand new mattresses for these children. Brand new, still in the box. Would you like me to show you?
No, sir, I'm asking, everything is set up. I think your daughter-in-law was trying to.
I think you're being awful aggressive. And I think you're trying to just get me going. And I don't appreciate that one bit. We are concerned about the children. Now, if you want to put me down and chew me up, that's fine.
I just want you to tell me your actions. I just want to know what you've done.
I have told you my actions. I've done everything financially and humanly possible to take care of these children.
You obviously heard Stephanie testify that she hadn't had a drop of alcohol, correct? That these tests in December?
I did not pay attention to her testimony.
Okay.
I was told I was coaching her or something, so I left the room.
Oh, okay. Okay. Have you seen her drink?
I did not hear that part.
Okay. Have you seen her drink alcohol, sir?
Yes, I've seen her drink alcohol from time to time.
Okay. Would you say month of December, did you see her?
I don't recall. If it was, it wasn't much. None of us here drink. My wife and I don't drink at all. So there's very rarely, unless her and Frank went out and bought a 6-pack or something, there was never any alcohol in this house.
Okay. And you said your wife has never been convicted or arrested of anything.
I don't believe so.
She didn't have a theft of property conviction in 2023?
I thought that was dropped.
Pass the witness.
Thank you. One of our parties needs to go to the restroom. We'll be on a break for about 3 minutes.
That's just uncalled for.
They can still hear you.
Okay, Miss Mystic, you were finished. Let's see, Mr. Sturmer,
Yes, ma'am.
you were finished, correct? Right. Okay, Mr. Sturmer.
Judge, I don't think I have any questions of this witness at this time.
Okay, anybody else have any questions for Mr. Browning? Is he back? Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Ms. Pollock, I need Mr. Browning to come back real quick.
I'm right here.
Okay, sir. Do you or your wife smoke marijuana?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So you're telling me if you're drug tested, any kind of substance would be based on the CBD you use, correct?
That's correct. That's correct, ma'am.
Okay.
And I haven't even, since they asked us to drug test, I quit using my CBDs 2 weeks ago, which is causing me quite a bit of pain. Okay. But I'll do whatever it takes. Okay. If I have to go without it, then I'll go without it.
Okay. Now, Mr. Browning, you understand the children have been removed 2 other times before this one, correct?
I believe so. Yes, ma'am.
And one time, first time, second time, have the children ever been placed with y'all?
No, ma'am.
Do you know why not, sir?
They were always returned to the parents.
No.
Now, I did, on the last case, I did fill out a form saying that I would be financially responsible for them.
Okay.
As far as their needs.
I'm talking about upon initial removal and throughout the case, before the kids got returned to them, were they placed with y'all?
They were placed in our home, but they were returned to the parents.
Okay.
Not under our control, my wife and my control, as far as I know.
But hold on. Before that, a second. The parents lived there when the children were removed, correct?
Excuse me?
The parents lived with y'all when the children were removed, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So the children, sorry, I have an animal walking by, sorry. Bad weather, so I have critters here today. So I guess I'm not asking this question right. The children lived at y'all's house when they were removed, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And they were returned to this house.
Okay. After the kids lived in some sort of foster home or somewhere else, right? No, you got
foster home?
not. I mean, they were children are removed, and then they're placed somewhere while the parents work services. Then they come home, right?
Correct. Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so we weren't able to place them there after the first time they were removed until the parents who still lived in your home worked services and were able to get them back, correct?
Correct. Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And that's what happened the last time also, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. But I mean, the first time I think it was just Brack, and then we had more kids, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Sir, did you know that your son and Ashley Hutton were in a relationship?
He initially denied it and said that he was just simply trying to help her out, but we had our suspicions.
Okay. And then did you
eventually? As far as my wife and I, we were on Stephanie's side of that little problem there because we thought that Stephanie didn't deserve that. Frank was in the wrong totally. And Stephanie was in the wrong, Ashley was in the wrong for getting involved with a married man.
Right. Kind of taking advantage of the situation, right?
Yes, ma'am. She took advantage of my wife and I and the whole situation. And I just feel like that my wife and I did the best under the circumstances. The pressure was ungodly, trying to deal with that many people in my home. At that point, I had 13 people living in my home. My wife and I were simply overwhelmed.
How many bedrooms is your house?
4 bedrooms.
Okay. And wasn't there some random guy living there too?
She had her nanny. There's David, whatever his name was. We were told that was her nanny. And he did most of the work as far as her children went. He prepared their meals. He washed their clothes. He got them dressed in the morning, put them on the bus. He was really the only one that did anything as far as her children.
What did she do?
Sat in her room on a computer.
Where, before everybody was removed, where did everybody live, sir?
Ashley was in the front bedroom. Her 4 children were in the bedroom to one of the other spare bedrooms. Stephanie and the boys were in her room. And of course, we had our room. My wife and I had our room in the back.
Where was Frank?
Frank was either on the couch or with Stephanie or with Ashley. He would bounce around the house just to where he stayed. And some nights he didn't come home at all.
Okay, where was the nanny, Manny, whatever you want to call him?
He would stay either in Ashley's room or sometimes he would fall asleep with her kids in their room. Or some nights he would fall asleep in my recliner in the living room. He was all over the place.
Sir, did any of these 4 adults work outside the home?
No, Ashley worked at the liquor store for a short period of time here in Cove. But that was only for a few months before she got fired there. Every time she would get a job, it would last for a month, maybe 2, and then she'd get fired. So I was supporting everybody, which is putting a financial strain on my wife and I.
Right. Why did you go on, sir?
It was putting us in a position where my wife and I were just banging our head against the wall. I mean, we didn't know what to do. Those 4 kids didn't deserve to be thrown out on the street. I would have loved to have thrown Ashley and Frank out of this house, which would have solved the problem. But those 4 children, I just can't see throwing children that age homeless onto the street. So as any human being, I did what I could to provide for those children. That's the only reason I did what I did, was to try and protect those kids. Even though they weren't my grandchildren, they were still children and did not deserve to live on the street.
How long do you think Ashley and the kids lived at your house? Her kids lived at y'all's house?
Well, it was just under 2 years, I believe.
Long time.
A long time.
Did you ever have any thoughts that anybody was using methamphetamine in your home?
I believe that Ashley and Frankie were, yes. I knew they were. I didn't realize they were doing it at the house. I thought they were doing it away from the home. But I never saw them do it here at the house, or I would have thrown them out on the spot. Frank knew that.
Did you hear the testimony that they smoked at their date, whatever? I think they smoked it in your garage.
Yes, ma'am, I heard that. And that's where they used to hang out at night so that they wouldn't disturb my wife and I. After the kids went to bed, they would all go out in the garage and sit around. They had lawn chairs out there, and they'd all sit around out in the garage. And my wife and I, whether we were sitting up watching TV or going to bed, I probably should have been smarter. I should have made the assumption of what was going on. I regret that I didn't there, but I don't really know what I could have done other than throw all of them out of the house.
Mr. Browning, when the kids were removed the second time, was Ashley Hutton living in your house then?
I don't believe so.
I don't think so either. Let me look.
This has been such an ongoing ordeal that I get one case almost blurs into the next.
They were, let's see, they were removed in approximately May of 22. I don't think she was living there then, do you?
No, she wasn't here then.
What does your wife work, sir?
No, she's retired.
Okay. What is y'all's year? You said you get VA, you get Social Security, she's retired.
My wife gets her Social Security check. I get my Social Security check, and I get my VA check, 100%.
What is y'all's gross monthly income combined?
It's about almost $7,000 a month.
Okay.
Yeah, approximately between the two of us, my wife and I, we make about $7,000 a month.
Okay. And are you buying your house or is it paid for?
I'm buying this home.
Okay.
I have quite a bit of equity in it, but I'm still paying for it.
Okay. Is it in a nice neighborhood?
Yes, ma'am. One of the nicest neighborhoods in Copper's Cove. That's why we bought it.
Okay. Sir, were you awake or were you at home the night the drive-by shooting occurred into your house?
I was sitting in a recliner watching TV with my grandson in my lap.
So did you hear it?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you do?
I put my grandson down, immediately ran out the front door.
Did you see anybody?
I saw the pickup truck turning the corner and taking off. I'm the one that called 911, gave him a description of the truck and its direction of travel.
Okay, where were the parents?
Frank was with me, Stephanie was with her children, and Ashley went running to her kids in the back bedroom. So both mothers were with their children. Frank was with me. I forget where my wife was. I think she was still here in the living room.
Okay.
Or
No, don't ask. She can't answer, just you. If you don't know, you don't. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Sir, what does Stephanie do every day and at night? What is her routine at your house?
At that time, now or at that time?
Now.
Now, she's helping. Her and Marla are totally redoing the home. Everything from moving furniture to cleaning out the garage and deciding what we want to keep, what we don't want to keep. She's done a lot of the painting in the house. Anytime I need anything done up high, like last night, she opened vents for me and things. I can't climb a ladder. So she's my handyman. Anything I need done around the house, she does it. If I need a faucet fixed, she does it. She's very good at that. And she's a hard worker. Frank was a screw up. And since Frank is not here, I can say that about my son. He was a screw up. I hate it. I love him. He's my only son. But the disappointment is unbearable.
What does
Stephanie go ahead.
What does Stephanie do?
Stephanie has really, really made up for it. She's more like our daughter than Frank is my son.
Okay. What does Stephanie do at night?
She works on her computer.
Does she go out to the bars or do anything like that?
No, none of us do. We only have one vehicle, and the only time she leaves is to go to her appointments. And I let her use the truck to go to doctor's appointments or your required appointments for her.
Okay.
No, none of us go to a bar. Okay. But Stephanie helps clean the kitchen. She helps with preparation of meals. She helps Marta with me. I have some bad days. I fell just a week ago out front in the street, messing with one of the dogs. I lost my balance and fell, bloodied myself all up. Her and Marta had to come get me out of the street and call the ambulance. This case is taking quite a toll on me physically.
And just for the record, Marla is your wife, right?
Yes, ma'am. 40 years.
Okay. So, Mr. Browning, are you aware that, well, let me back up. You said that when the children were removed, your son or his wife's lawyer said for you not to drug test, correct?
Yeah, because we were going to, and she told her lawyer what was asked of us, and the reply I got back was for Marta and I not to until it was court ordered.
Okay. Are you aware that the parents don't have attorneys appointed until the children are already removed?
Well, this was when we were asked, they already had attorneys because that's when she told me the next day after being asked. She said, no, my attorney said not to do it until the judge asks you to do it.
Okay.
But we volunteered through all these cases to take drug tests. My wife and I have never hidden anything. We would have voluntarily taken a drug test at any time if you had asked us to do it.
Okay. Thank you, sir. One more question. Mr. Browning, why were you reluctant to let Miss Mystic in your home when she represents the kiddos?
I was asleep when she came to the door, and I've heard, you saw how she treated me here today.
That's her job.
And I've heard, I understand that. I think she takes it a little vigorously. I've heard her make comments about me and my wife in the past. And so I'm not I'm sorry. I'm not real fond of the lady. I know she's doing her job, but
Well, and you know,
I think you can do your job without attacking people.
but sir, you understand she was doing her job because that's something that I ordered, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I understand that.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't realize that at the time. I thought that just CPS and CASA was coming. I didn't realize she was coming. So that caught me by surprise. And,
Okay.
you know, I'm sure I'm not on her Christmas card list, and I'm sure she's not on mine. So,
Have you had any discussion with Ashley Hutton after the kids were removed?
had discussion with who?
Have you seen or had any discussion with Ashley Hutton after the original removal of all the kids?
No. No, well, she was here like 72 hours after the kids were removed before I could have her escorted off the property with the, where we had her removed.
Okay, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to ask a question. So did you physically have to go to the JP or a court or somewhere and file an eviction?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
She wouldn't move?
And in fact, one of the officers happened to be here that day, and I had him witness me giving her the paperwork, which gave her 72 hours to leave the premises.
Why wouldn't she move, sir?
She didn't want to go. She was dug in like a tick, if excuse the expression.
I understand.
She had nowhere to go.
But the kids had already been removed.
That was it. She was taking advantage the whole time. I kept hearing that, oh, as soon as she gets her next check, she's going to put money down an apartment and they'd be out of here. And then it would never come to pass. And then we'd hear the same thing again a month later. I found out afterwards that she was using her food stamps for drugs. Now, I don't know this for a fact, but I was told this, that she was using her food stamps for drugs.
Okay, so you had to have her evicted. Hold on, you had to have her evicted after the kids were removed, correct?
This is a copy of the eviction notice. I have it right here in front of me.
Okay, and the kids had already been, hold on, Mr. Browning, the kids had already been removed, correct?
I believe so. Yes, ma'am.
You aware that her and your husband were still, your son were still in a relationship at that time?
I have no idea what they had, ma'am. Or whatever you want to call it. It sure was nothing. It's no relation to anything I would have called a relationship, but then I'm old school. I've been married to my wife for 40 years. I don't play those games.
Mr. Browning, is there any other family members that y'all have where these kids could have been placed?
I only have, all my family has passed away except for a couple cousins that live all the way across the country in Florida.
What about, does Frank Browning have any siblings?
No. He's my only son.
Okay. Does your wife, I guess it's kind of a silly question since y'all been married 40 years. I guess your wife doesn't have any other children, huh?
I have a stepdaughter who is, how old is Gina now, honey?
Just say if you don't know.
44. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't know her age. I have a stepdaughter who lives in Oklahoma.
Okay. Any work friends, church friends, neighbors, anybody like that?
That's who we have the children with now, are our church friends.
Okay. Do y'all go to church, you and your wife?
Yes, ma'am.
Did Stephanie and Frank go to church?
I've got them going. They were going to church until Frank was arrested. They were even talking to our preacher about being baptized.
Did they go to church before the kids were removed?
No. It took something drastic for them to finally. I've been trying to talk them into it for years.
But y'all were regular church goers before the kids were removed?
My wife and I, oh yes. Okay. Have been for years.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Browning. Anybody else?
Yes, please.
Nobody else? Okay. Thank you, sir. You may be excused. Oh, wait, sorry.
Sorry, there's a glare. I may have to turn off my video. Something's going on.
Go on.
Mr. Browning, you mentioned that your church friends with the current placement, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And how do you feel about the children being in their care right now?
I know they're safe. I would much rather have the children here with me. But at least if they are in the system, I know there was people that are taking care of them. That's why we asked for them to be put with our church friends.
Okay.
I know the system can be dangerous, and I just felt better with them with our church friends.
And you understand that the purpose of today's trial is for consideration of termination of the parental rights of both your son and your daughter-in-law, correct?
Yes, I guess so, ma'am.
Okay. So if the outcome were that their parental rights were terminated, does anything in your mind, I understand you know that kids are safe with that placement. Would you want the children placed with family over the church placement, even though they're good people?
Oh, they're good people, but I'd much rather have the children placed with my wife and I. We're family. We're their immediate family. These are my grandsons. I've already lost my son to prison. These are my boys. I'm not going to be around a whole lot longer. I would like to raise my grandsons and teach them right from wrong. Take them fishing. Teach them to hunt so they know their grandfather.
And it's your understanding for whatever reason that you were advised that you were not going to be an eligible placement for the children by Madeline Miller?
How? I'd like to know why we're not a reasonable placement. I don't understand that statement.
Okay. When there was I guess the investigator and caseworker at that time, and then I believe they switched over to Ashley Hutton's case. When a new caseworker came in, did you have the opportunity to explore the placement again, or did you take that as I'm not being considered, so stop asking?
You know, we were simply not being considered.
Okay, so
I never heard a
that.
single person. We kept asking about having the children placed with us, but we were never asked. We would have done anything and complied with anything asked of us in order to get the children placed with my wife and I.
Okay, and you did advise the current caseworker, Hector Burgos, that you would be
Oh yes, many times. He knows.
Okay.
He knew my wife and I.
Sir.
Stop. Y'all can't talk at the same time. Mr. Browning, let Miss San Miguel finish her question, please. Go on, Miss San Miguel.
Now, I know you've seen your son and daughter-in-law, I mean, in good times and bad times. How is Miss Polk when here lately, when she's not on drugs or alcohol? How does she treat the children?
Well, she's a fantastic mother, and she's doing great. That's why I wanted to go back to school and finish her degree. She has a bright future. My son, it's up to him what he decides to do in life, but Stephanie has a bright future, and she loves those children. I don't think, if it wasn't for my son, I don't think Stephanie would have ever gotten messed up with drugs. I think that was all influenced by my son. I hate to say that about him, but I believe that to be true.
Do you have any knowledge of Ms. Polk using alcohol in your home or anywhere else?
I've seen her have a hard lemonade or something like that. Never hard liquor. I've seen her have a beer here, a beer there through the years, but no one in this household is any kind of a hard drinker.
Okay,
my
and
wife and I don't drink. Go ahead.
How often have you seen Ms. Polk have a drink?
Very rarely. Very rarely.
And most importantly, most recently, within the last 3 months or so, have you seen Ms. Polk have any alcohol?
I think I saw her have a couple through the holidays. Okay. And that would have been just a couple, nothing Nothing extreme.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. No further
Yes,
questions.
ma'am.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Browning, when's the last time you seen the boys?
I have not seen them since they were taken.
Okay. Did you and your wife get them Christmas presents?
Yes, ma'am.
And where are they? Where are the gifts?
They're wrapped up and waiting for them in their room.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, sir. You may step aside. Thank you. Mr. Miguel, next witness.
No
Yes.
other witnesses, Your Honor. We rest.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Cummings, any witnesses?
No witnesses, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Mystic, any witnesses?
Yes, I don't have my mouse and I have to touch everything. Sorry. I'd like to recall Stephanie Paul quickly.
Okay, please.
Ms. Paul,
Yes, ma'am.
your father-in-law just testified that he saw you drink over the holidays. Do you want to change your sworn testimony when you testified under oath? But you haven't drank.
I drank before a month ago.
No, in December over the holidays, did you drink?
Not over the Christmas and New Year's. No, I did not.
So,
I think the last drink I had would have been over the Thanksgiving holiday.
okay. And I may have didn't hear your father-in-law, Mr. Browning. I heard him say he would take a polygraph that he was told by your lawyer not to drug test. Well, then when he was questioned again, he said, you told him that.
I had asked my attorney, and she did say not till he was court ordered. So
Okay.
it came from my attorney. It came to him via me from my attorney.
Okay. So when we had our hearing January 6th, and you can correct me, it was brought up that your in-laws were asked to drug test. And you and Mr. Browning both said they were never asked to drug test. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
That wasn't true, was it? They were asked.
Madeline had asked him that because it claimed the chemical exposure or what have you. She asked him, but he told her that he goes like the next day to his doctor to get his levels tested for his cancer. So she told him not to worry about it.
Well, that's not the testimony he just said. He said, when Madeline said that, you told him, your lawyer said not until it's court ordered. So which one is it?
Both.
Okay. And do y'all have the results? I'm assuming he said he'd do everything. He went the next day and had his blood tests. Did he turn them in to you so you could waive them in front of the judge?
No.
Okay. Well, Madeline said, don't worry about it if you're going to get blood tested the next day, right?
She just wanted to make sure that he was not exposed. She didn't ask for the results. She didn't say that the results needed to be turned in. She just wanted him to check for his own safety.
Okay. And I'm assuming that your lack of paying the child support, you never asked your in-laws.
No, ma'am, I have not.
You asked them about the drug testing so the kids could come home, right?
Yes.
I guess getting the beds bought for the kids were your in-laws?
Yes.
And they paid for that?
Yes.
Painting the house, in-laws paid for that?
Yes.
So why wouldn't you say, God, my kids are with these wonderful people that are taking care of them. Could you please help with that?
I should have. Yes, ma'am.
That's the witness.
Anybody else? No. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Paul. Next witness, Miss Mystic.
Yes, I call Leanna Sina.
Okay. Let's see. There she is.
Leanne, how long have you been the CASA advocate on this case?
Since April 17th.
And the removal was filed April 3rd. Is that about right?
Yes, ma'am.
So as soon as you could, you were assigned and have been on it this entire time. Is that correct? So I want to take you back. When you say you got on it April 17th, when's the first time you laid eyes on these three boys?
I want to say 3 days later, we had scheduled a visit on the 20th.
All right. And I'm going to take each child and kind of be similar questions. Let's go first with Brack. How old is he?
Brack, he just turned 7.
Okay. And do you know what grade he's in?
He's in first.
Okay. And could you describe him physically when you saw him the 3 days after you were, I guess, appointed? Is that right?
Yes. Brack was mostly nonverbal at the time, other than, audio or sounds like he would make. He was a little reserved, which now that I know him is very out of character. He's a very sweet, loving, kind child. But yes, he was very reserved. He appeared a little tired. But overall, he was kind of, I guess, just like a fish out of water, it seemed like a little bit.
Physically, did you notice anything, sunken eyes, anything about?
Less so on Bubba, just because he had glasses and was a little bit more withdrawn than the other two.
Okay.
But the other two were very weak-eyed.
Okay, we're going to take each at a time. Hold on.
Hey, hold on too. It, just for the record, Bubba is Brack, right?
Yes, sorry. Bubba is Brack. Dylan is John.
Yeah, we're going to go through all that. Okay, so right now we're with Bubba, who's Brack, who's 7.
Yes.
Okay. And he attends what school?
I can never remember the name. It's
That's okay.
Sorry, I don't remember the
That's
name.
okay.
But I've done a school.
Say that again.
I have done a school visit there and visited with the teacher and the counselor.
Okay. And I know it's hearsay, but you got some information from the teacher and the counselor that was very different from what you've heard in testimony from Stephanie Polk about her relationship with Ashley. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I did that in one of my reports several reports ago.
And it was about the relationship of Stephanie with Ashley, how Stephanie portrayed her relationship with Ashley.
Yes, ma'am. Both the teacher and the counselor related to me separately, not in the same room at the same time, that they had presented as girlfriends at the parent-teacher visit.
Okay. So you've kind of described how he looked physically, he had his glasses, and then the nonverbal made audio sounds, reserved. Tell me about in school how he is classified as far as special needs, special ed or 504.
Yes, he's special needs. He's in special education. So he has occupational therapy and physical therapy at school. They do sensory play. He's working on potty training, speech therapy. Those sorts of things are his day-to-day.
Okay. And that was April of 24. As we sit here today, January of 25, kind of tell us, besides him getting older, are there any changes as far as his special needs? What has he accomplished or still working on?
He is so vocal now. I mean, almost, it's not like full sentences or paragraphs. But since he has been in placement with the Jules, and I've seen Casey work with him on a few things, he's learned a couple new words, or he's learned, even when I visited at his school, he was able to tell me he was having burgers and fries for lunch, and he was able to say, "I'm a good boy," when I visited.
my best friend. So he's learning words and he's learning how to use them contextually. And he's very, very sensory driven. He loves a screen. He loves a hair bow or a hair clip or anything that he can cling on to. So I've also seen a little bit, he's just a little bit more coordinated in his walking and his in grabbing, holding on to things. And a little more animated, engaged with the people around him, playing with his siblings, playing with, like on a couple of my visits, I brought gifts or had different Christmas presents, etc. And he was playing with his siblings, running around much more out of his shell than the first time I visited.
What's his official diagnosis?
I'm not sure off the top of my head the official diagnosis is.
Okay. But he is getting these services and the special ed through the school?
Yes.
Okay. Is he potty trained yet?
No, not fully. If he's asked to use the bathroom, he will, but he has to typically be reminded. I have checked with the fictive kin placement a couple times on that, because when I did the school visit, they did say that he was using the bathroom now, and they were having to change him less. But Casey and Brittany said it's still the case where unless they prompt him to go, he's still in diapers or pull-up.
Thank you. And in their home, obviously there's lots of children, but you made a comment, Mr. Casey Jewell works with him. And is that something you have seen him do?
Yes, I've seen him do that with all of the boys. I know we'll get to the other boys, but yes.
That's okay.
Well, especially too with Bubba, because, Bubba, he does get very upset when he does get upset, he gets emotional, right? And, he feels these big emotions, and I've seen Casey really get down with him and explain why he can't do that, take a moment to cool down, go and take a moment to cool down, de-escalate the sensory feelings that are going on, and then kind of come back and explain why he needs to apologize or why he can't do that, and really get down on his level. And I think that's important.
Is there anything else about Bubba that I haven't asked you that you want to share? And we'll get to parents and the Jewels, but just about this little guy.
Just at school, the teacher, he was so proud to show me his school and his classrooms, and the teacher and the counselor echoed, and this was in their words, like it was night and day from where the kids were when the case started. They talked about the kids, how withdrawn they were, how tired they were. And they just said, one of them was telling us about how the kids have their hair styled now, and they come in and Bubba had his new boots on. He's very proud of his cowboy boots that fictive kin placement got him. So just very composed, put together, and the surrounding community has noticed that.
And was Brack one of the kiddos that was positive for meth this time?
No, Brack was not.
Okay. All right. Let's go to Sean. How old is Sean?
Sean is 5. He's in kindergarten at the same school as Brack or Bubba.
Okay. And then does he have any special needs, any SPED or 504? No. He's pretty young, so, okay. But did you notice anything with him from when he came into care? And I know he was one of the kiddos that was positive for methamphetamine. So did you notice anything about how he looked?
Yes. He was very, I would say, like weak-eyed, and he was the most emotional out of the 3 children. When we first went, he was very upset. Are you here to take me, away from, they took me. He was crying about the experience. He was questioning about his parents. And, he seemed more volatile with his emotions at the time. But he did have he was very weak-eyed, is I guess the best description. And again, I didn't witness this directly, but from speaking with the fictive kin placement, he had nightmares those first couple weeks. And I don't know if you would call them hallucinations or not, but some of the nightmares, he would say there was someone screaming at him in his closet. And I know the fictive kin placement would check and go and look and, work through it with him, but that seemed to go away after that first few weeks.
Okay. And obviously, they were sad about being removed from their parents, correct?
I would say that Sean was. The
Okay.
other two, I did not hear. They were never mentioned by the other two.
I got you. I understand. So as we sit here today, have you seen changes in Sean? Obviously, they're older and are going to do more things, but any changes significant as far as mentally, emotionally?
Sean is still very talkative, very sweet, he's a very traditional 5-year-old. If he has something to say, he has to say it, he's really excited by it. And I've seen him talk about his fictive kin dad. He calls him dad. And he's told me, he's teaching me to be a good boy. He loves me so much. And, he's really, I feel like, and this is, my opinion, but I feel like I've seen him kind of blossom and that like he feels supported and he feels loved and safe and has a very like defined routine. And I've seen him flourish in that environment. He seems more secure and comfortable.
Thank you. Now, I didn't ask about Bubba. Is he in traditional counseling?
Bubba or Sean?
Yeah, I didn't ask about with Bubba. Is he in counseling?
No.
Okay. What about Sean? He's 5, but
we originally recommended it after the first meeting where he was upset about his parents. And then we looked into finding someone to come to the school and struggled. But then as time went on, and after speaking with his counselor at school and hearing kind of how he's very open with any feelings he has and seeing him adapt, we actually felt like it might do more harm than good. He seemed to, and I don't mean to be insensitive, but I will say over time, he stopped asking about his biological mom and dad. He accepted where he was as this is home, and he talked about this as home and the things there as ours. And, it seemed like over time and, that he got more adjusted and didn't really ask about it. And the trauma kind of went away, I think, from being removed.
Sure. Anything else on Sean that you want to share that I didn't ask?
I think I think seeing him and Casey have a really good bond. I know I have seen that from when I've been there. And he thinks the world of Casey. He talks about him all the time. The teacher and counselor said the same. So, I feel like that's been special to see. He does also have a bit of, I will say, he does tend to want responsibility. He holds responsibility for his other siblings a little bit. So he and Dylan play all the time. And they beat each other up like little boys do, and they play rough, but like he takes care of them. I'm
gonna stop you real quick. When you say Dylan, you mean John, who's 3. I saw the judges look.
Sorry.
Yeah, we call him Dylan. They call him Dylan, but his first name is John. But that's who you're talking about when you say Dylan.
I've gotten used to their
right, me too.
Because that's what they're used to being called. Yes. So John and him play. They roughhouse a lot. And they're both at the same school now, Bubba and Sean, and he looks out for Bubba there at school, so there's definitely like a family protection thing that he has. He's
Okay. Well, let's go to Dylan, John Dylan. He's 3, is that right?
He's 3.
Okay. Does he have any,
just had a birthday in October.
Right. Does he have anything? I mean, I know he was, is he in the pre-K program at May Stevens?
I don't believe so. No, he's at home with the.
That's right. Yes. Okay. But describe Dylan when he came into care, if you can recall.
Dylan, I've seen probably, I don't know, maybe the biggest change. Completely nonverbal. Very, very reserved. Would have absolutely nothing to do with anybody but, fictive kin placement or mom and dad at parental visits that I supervised. Months and months and months I visited, and he was never really interested in me, never really, and then starting in maybe September, he just, turned into like a mini Sean. Like, it was like, he had everything to say and I couldn't understand anything he was saying. But he was just babbling and babbling and babbling and talking, and everything was wonderful. And he wanted to show me, he was really into this car show and wanted to show me all his cars and monster trucks. And again, just like, and when I'd visit, he wasn't clinging to Brittany or Casey. He was playing with his siblings or hugging on me, or we were playing together. And him talking, yes, some of it was understandable, some of it wasn't, but he was so reserved, very weak-eyed, very, I would say, like,
Beautiful.
I don't know if it's fair to say, but sickly. He did get sick quite a bit, right in the beginning and after removal. And, he just was detached, I would say. Like, he just wasn't very interested in his surroundings for quite some time, at least when I visited. But
Sure.
he has really blossomed. It's a huge change. I think I put that in one of my last reports. Like, it was almost like he wasn't the same kid.
Is he getting any speech therapy, or?
I don't think so right now.
Okay. Pretty young.
I think maybe play therapy had been recommended at one point, but no, I don't think there was any speech.
Okay. And he had also tested positive for methamphetamines. Is that correct?
Yes. I
Okay.
can't remember. They both had incredibly high levels,
Yes.
but I don't remember which was higher.
The Jules, the fictive kin, who the family has known a long time, they want to adopt these children. Is that right?
Yes, and I've verified that with them multiple occasions.
Sure. Back to Bubba, or to Bragg. Would this sound right for diagnosis that he's global development delay?
Yes, that would sound.
Okay, and that he also has the club foot?
Yeah, I know he did have club foot, but he had surgery for that. I believe, no, he didn't.
Yeah. Or not the club foot yet.
Okay. Yeah, and that's why I know he's developmentally delayed, Dory, but I don't know if there was like a formal diagnosis or if there was maybe autism or anything like that mixed in. I wasn't sure. So
Sure. Okay, Mr. Jewell can testify to that if we need to call him. But it sounds, as far as each individual child, there have been great leaps in at least 2 of them being nonverbal, and just with time and getting older, they are in a place today. You're not telling this court, we have serious issues with these kids, that they need therapy, or be removed from this home, or not be together because they don't get along, or they're hurting other children in the home. We don't have any of those issues with these 3 boys. Is that correct?
No, there's no concern.
Okay. And I know with the Jewels, they have to do adoption. They have so many children in the home. Have you seen anything, because the sheer number of children, that these boys haven't gotten the attention that they need and deserve?
No, not at all. Both Brittany and Casey have been dedicated to working with the kids. And I know Brittany stays at home, so she really, works with the
Right.
kids day and night, for the kids that at least aren't in school during the day, and cooks dinner, and they did a family trip to the zoo. So no, I haven't seen any neglect or kids going without
Sure.
medication.
So let me go to the visits. I think at the beginning, because I was involved in the last case and the first case, I believe. I don't think I was the ad litem, but I remember it. It was always as I've been in court, not wanting the children to go home. You didn't come in that way, did you?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I met with Stephanie and Frank and my supervisor the first time at a cafe due to the concerns for the home or chemical exposure.
Sure.
And, it was very clear that Stephanie loved her kids. I mean, she got emotional, and I knew she loved her kids. And, I even asked Frank outright. I was like, hey, I'm going to ask a tough question, but why did you bring Stephanie, not Stephanie, sorry. Why did you bring, I don't remember her name, the other girl's name. She's not my kid.
Ashley.
To the home, and I asked about the kids' exposure, and, Frank expressed remorse about the situation and how he had tried to hide any sort of paraphernalia or put things away so the kids didn't get into it. But he expressed, regret for the situation they were in. And after
Let me
that,
stop you real quick. We heard from the grandfather that there was no indication in the home of anything going on, because at night they would be in the garage, the doors shut, and everybody's sitting in lawn chairs. Was that your understanding of what Mr. Browning told you?
not at the time, no. I was under the
What did he tell you that was in the home that he did try to keep from being in the home?
paraphernalia, drug paraphernalia.
Okay. Did you go further and ask, is it something the children could have gotten into or touched?
I asked you about where it might have been, and he said, I don't really know. I don't know how it happened. I just know that I tried to put away paraphernalia if it was left out, and, remorse for the situation they were in. There was a bit, then it did revert to, at that point, a little bit of a finger pointing towards Ashley.
Okay. Did Stephanie freely admit her methamphetamine use?
At that time, no, it was much more of it was Ashley's fault, and that her and Frank were working through it in their marriage.
Okay. Did you ever ask Stephanie if she portrayed herself to be in a relationship with Ashley?
No, I did not.
Okay. And that was from somebody at a school. You saw nothing. Neither Frank nor Stephanie ever indicated that to you. Is that correct?
Correct. I only put it in my report because two separate sources at the school.
Absolutely. So you're at this cafe, y'all are talking. At that point, you're new on this case. Did you all talk about a future, a plan for visits, things like that?
Yeah, Stephanie and Frank wanted additional visits. They also brought up concerns about the heat and the CPS, how hot it was at the CPS offices, as well as getting the 2-hour visits, 1 hour per parent, and or virtual visit. And so I sent an email to everyone asking for, I think it was on May 10th, maybe it was, I'm trying to check my notes I took. Anyways, it was early on. I sent an email advocating for additional visits. And everyone was in agreement. No one contested that. It was going to be 2 hours with 1 additional virtual visit in the evenings. And then Stephanie's marijuana test came in, and it was higher over the past 3 weeks. We were notified by Hector. And so at that time, we made the decision to not grant extra visits. And then Stephanie's tests were positive with marijuana for several weeks. And then, or I want to say until, I don't know, early May, I think they were positive. And then they kept their normal visits until it was court ordered that they had the additional time after her inpatient.
Okay, so throughout the summer until she went to inpatient and she got out, was it September?
I believe it's August or end of August like 28th or something like that.
Okay. Okay. And so then they had increased visits. And at this time, Frank was also doing those visits in the summer until he went to, I don't remember when he went to jail.
Yeah.
September?
He was October. He
October. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
So he
like October 10th or something
Sorry.
like that. Incarcerated.
I'm sorry. I
Sorry.
talked
Thank you for
over.
the answer.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Leanna.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was saying I think October 10th was when he was incarcerated, but he did attend visits until other than when he went to inpatient, which was September.
Okay. Now, did he have a test that came up positive for meth?
He did. He tested positive for meth and amphetamines early April, not long after the case came out, as well as marijuana. And then he tested positive for marijuana, and then it was diluted for 2 weeks, or in May and in July, and those were counted as positive. And then in July, he started testing positive for methamphetamine and marijuana and amphetamines again until he went to inpatient, which then he came out and it was alcohol.
Okay. Did you ever have a discussion with either one of them about alcohol use?
We asked Stephanie about alcohol, but we've been kind of the same answer that she's testified here is that she's not drinking.
Okay. All right. The alcohol test stopped the visits because it's in the judge's order that you don't drink alcohol in a CPS case. And according to the testing, she continually was testing positive. How long has it been, if you know, that she's had a visit with the children?
It's been, I want to say, since after Dylan's birthday, shortly after Dylan's birthday, which was the 26th. Maybe Halloween is the last time she's had a visit. 10:30.
So, okay. October 26th was his birthday.
Uh-huh.
And so it would have been October. Now I want to take you, were the visits appropriate and good that you observed?
Yes, I went to I supervised 2 of the different weekly visits. And they were also supervised by someone at the facility at Unity. There were a couple times where the Unity supervisor was like, hey, let's not talk about that or redirect. But it was, it was largely appropriate. That was the first time I did see Dylan be more like talkative than I had seen, when I had visited on my own. He was much more like silly and goofy with Stephanie. There were some concerns about the snacks that were being brought every week being very sugary. And we did discuss that with Stephanie. And she made amends or, corrected that, I believe, and stopped bringing the sugar week on week, other than like birthday cake, which was approved, I believe, for the birthday.
So it sounds like, when you started out, it was encouraging visits. In fact, sending an email, want to give increased visits. Then we started having, her marijuana went up. Dad went to inpatient, but he was testing positive for meth and amphetamines and marijuana. Mom, she tested for meth at the beginning, then the marijuana, then she went to inpatient, correct?
Yes.
And then after inpatient, is that when we started, or in, I guess, October, end of October, started having the alcohol tests?
Correct. I think the first alcohol test, I'm looking back at my notes, I think was 10:04.
Okay. In being a caseworker, have you had a lot of cases where we test for alcohol for ETG?
I'd say a fair amount. Yeah. Whenever we're drug testing, usually we also test for alcohol.
Would you say that in your experience, that it is very difficult because of how short a span of time that alcohol or that ETG remains, that it's hard to get a positive, if you will? Or what is your experience? That's a better question. Sorry.
Yeah, I'd say with alcohol, it doesn't have the same lifespan or half-life that a lot of other drugs do in the system. So it is something that you would have had to ingest very recently or close to your test, from my experience, to test positive.
Okay. And are you aware, having maybe one hard seltzer, would that show up in a drug test, alcohol test, or do you know if it would be probably considerably more than that? If you know from training.
I mean, again, I'm not an expert, but I would assume that it would take more than that for the levels that were seen on the test.
Okay. Did you receive the results of those tests that were pending? Did you get an email of what they tested?
Yes, the pending results. I was going to say 1206, 1211, 1220, and 1226 were all positive for alcohol, as well as 1126. And there was alcohol not every single week, but consistently from October 4th until 1226. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 positive alcohol tests.
Is this the most you've had in a case?
For alcohol, I would say yes, especially given that we're monitoring, or that they know we're monitoring. I would say normally once it's caught once, it normally gets nipped in the bud, especially when visits have been removed, in my experience.
Sure. Tell me what changed to where you basically weren't, sometimes we get, let me scratch that. Sometimes we get emails, parent test positive, but, kids are bonded. Let's let them have some type of contact. It would hurt the kids. Did you do that in this case when we started getting those, when she stopped having visits?
Can you rephrase? Sorry, I'm not sure I understand.
That was a bad question. Did you ask for visits even though mom was testing positive for alcohol? I understand Mr. Browning was in jail, but did you ask, even with the positive test, hey, these kids are hurting, I want them to have visits?
No, because at that point, the last time it came up was Frank had not been arrested yet and had methamphetamine positive. So I was concerned about exposure for the children. The outside of that, by the time the children, at this point in the case, again, the kids had, and again, I don't say this to be insensitive, but the kids had stopped asking about, they weren't, they seemed to, in their identity, call, Casey and Brittany mom and dad. There wasn't really any asking about other mom, other dad. And so at that point, without having a clean test, there wasn't a reason to argue for the children to have additional visits.
Okay. And is that when it changed from, and I'll use the CPS term in their reports, reunification to termination? If that's where you are.
I think I want to say termination was closer, placement with fictive kin was what was recommended shortly after aggravated circumstances. That being said, I was still hoping that I was still at that point hoping, the parents would stop testing positive so that they could have visits. We could see the progress that the kids had made, or see them with the parents after the fact. The final termination recommendation was really, I would say, where I really changed my mind for the safety of the kids, has been seeing the repeat use, and also the pattern that's from April until today of as soon as meth and amphetamines were removed, and I will give Stephanie credit. She has not used meth or amphetamines since the start of the case. I think her last positive was April 11th, but it was marijuana, and it was increasing in marijuana. And then when we said you can't use marijuana, we had inpatient, she was clean, and now it's been swapped to alcohol. And it feels, in my experience, seeing drug and addiction as a problem, it's common to replace one addiction with something else. And so that, coupled with seeing, the lack of responsibility from the parents in how they got here and their own ownership in the situation, is when CASA's recommendation really changed. It has been pointing fingers at Ashley or other people, as opposed to, we did this, this is our fault, owning up to the things and how they got here. I haven't seen that. And that concerns me for the safety of the children ongoing.
Let's talk briefly about the grandparents. Have you had phone calls weekly from them begging for their grandchildren to be placed with them?
No, the first time.
How many phone calls? That may have been a bad question. How many phone calls have you received from the grandparents?
0.
Okay. Now, have you gone, do they know who you are?
They do after yesterday.
Okay. So, oh, you know what? We weren't going to the house because of the order. So were you consistently talking with Stephanie throughout the case?
I was in contact with Stephanie the once per month requirement for the parents.
Okay. And did she talk? Oh, sorry.
I was going to say either myself or Claire were.
Claire being your supervisor, sure. When you would have your contact with Stephanie, did she bring up grandparents getting the kids?
She had brought up grandparents in the context of living there. But in terms of them having the, not the ownership, sorry, the custody, there's the word, had a brain fart. It was not brought up until more recent conversations, no.
Okay. Would that have been maybe was that after our court hearing, January 6th, or?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Have you found inconsistencies or credibility issues with Stephanie when you've had conversations with her?
I have. I've found inconsistencies in the story or the storyline. And I mean, I don't know if I almost sometimes feel like she believes some of the things, like she's said it so many times that she believes it.
Okay. Tell me about the home visit. You were welcomed into the home, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm sure, is she the one that showed you around?
Yes, her and the grandmother.
Okay. Was Mr. Browning there, the grandfather?
He was sitting in his recliner.
Okay. All right. And can you describe how you thought the house looked?
Yeah. Walking in, there were some like toys, clutter, things like that outside the house. Walking in, there was a very strong smell of smoke, cigarette smoke. But the living room was largely organized. The room off to the right, we were told, was Ashley's room, or had been Ashley Hutton's room. It had been turned into what looked kind of like a playroom. It has a TV. It had some presents lined up for Christmas. For the kids.
To stop you real quick. Did you ever get a phone call in December? Hey, I've got these gifts for the kids. I know I'm not seeing them. Can you pick them up, or can I bring them? Did anybody call you about the Christmas gifts?
No, I was not aware of Christmas gifts.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Go ahead.
We then walked into the kitchen, had a look in the pantry and the freezer. They were well stocked. The kitchen had like things stacked on the counters. There were some, as we walked down the hallway to where Stephanie's room is and where the kids' room would be, there was some damage to the walls that had been patched and in the doors. The room that would be the kids was like kind of like a storage room, or it had,
Wait, Mr. Browning, no. Mr. Browning testified that they had beds, and I said, are they set up? And he said, I can drag them out here. Was that room set up when you went?
It was not set up.
Okay.
Big piece of furniture that Stephanie said she was trying to move, but it was too tall. She said she had been trying to get things repaired. She was doing a lot of DIY and painting, but the room was not ready for kids.
Okay. And in bringing that up, did you hear that testimony when I asked that?
I did hear the testimony.
Okay.
I didn't see beds when I was there physically, but they could have been there tucked behind something. There was a lot of things stored in the garage, a lot of things stored in the bedroom.
Sure.
Stephanie's room had a lot of like things piled up and, in corners and stacked. And there were paint cans like in the bathroom or different places where there were paint cans because they were painting. But the rooms were not, like the rooms had not been set up for the children. They were not beds laid out with bedding or anything like that.
Sure. They did have beds that were going to be put together, I guess, is what.
I did not see beds.
Okay.
Again, the room, they may have had them and they boxes or storage, but they were not visible in where we walked in.
Okay. And I know I asked you if they called about the kids being placed with Mr. Browning's parents. Did you ever have a conversation, or did they ever call you and say, what could they do? Could they go drug test? Had you ever heard today that Stephanie said that her lawyer said that the grandparents weren't supposed to drug test?
No, not until case on the 6th or the 7th of January did I hear that, I had always heard per the report, the initial investigator report, that they refused testing.
Okay. Let me just ask you, in what you have seen, what you've heard in these hearings, if Stephanie and Mr. Browning were not living in that home, would your recommendation change from termination to the kids moving in with their grandparents?
No. And the
Why?
reason being is just from this case alone, not even considering the other ones. And I mentioned this to them when I was visiting yesterday at the home visit, is no one kicked out Ashley. If Ashley was the problem, no one kicked her out. No one, if there were roaches everywhere, if it was dirty, why did it take 2 years or almost 2 years to kick her out? I also just, in general, there's a lack of protective parenting. Who's advocating for these children? This isn't the first time that they've tested positive for methamphetamines and been removed from the home where the grandparents lived. And so if it's happened once, who's to say when Frank gets out of prison in however many years that it doesn't happen again, and again. And if they weren't aware of it happening under their nose the first time, how are they going to be aware of it happening if and when it happens again?
Thank you. Pass the witness.
I'm sorry, Mr. Stevens, y'all got to remind me if you need a break. You need a break?
I wouldn't mind about a 2-minute stretch.
Okay, go on. We'll do a 2-minute stretch. Okay. That's a baseball term, I think, isn't it?
No, that's the 7th inning.
Okay, so it shows you what I know. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Sturmer, any questions? Ms. Santa?
No, ma'am, I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. San Miguel?
Oh, sorry. technical difficulties. Yes, I just have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Miss Sina, you mentioned that the first time that you spoke to the grandparents was yesterday, correct?
Sorry, I was still on
The
mute.
home visit. The first time you spoke with the Brownings, the paternal grandparents, was yesterday?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So why did you not reach out to them or any other family members prior to yesterday?
I reached out and have been in contact with Stephanie and Frank through this as they were the parents.
Isn't there also a requirement each time we come to court is to address family placement and family connection as well?
They live with the grandparents and they're still living in the home with the grandparents. The biological mother.
Why did you not want to know about any family members that may be interested in either visitation or placement of the children?
I was interested in where the kids could be placed that was safe. However, that had not been brought up as an option at any point, nor was it ever expressed to me as a CASA from my meetings with Stephanie or Frank, that they were interested in taking the children.
How can you make a determination that placement or visitation with the paternal grandparents is not safe if you've never even spoke to them?
Well, the house itself had chemical exposure, so I wasn't allowed to go into the house and the facility where the grandparents lived.
Couldn't you have met at a public location?
I did meet at a public location with Stephanie and Frank, the biological parents.
I'm only speaking about the Brownings. I mean, what other things could have been done is what I'm interested in. Could you have made phone calls to the Brownings to find out about their background history? Did you inquire about their criminal history, their CPS history?
I did.
That would determine safety.
I did look into the CPS history as well as the previous cases and the sister case for this, so I was familiar with that history. I also was familiar with the fact from the investigator's report, as well as everything that had occurred up until the point I signed on to the case. So that due diligence did occur.
But did you do due diligence in regards to family?
I did. I believe that the grandparents could have come to the meeting with Stephanie and Frank at the cafe when we went and met in person if they had been interested in taking the children at the time.
Okay, so based off of that, you decided not to make any other action or steps on your part to inquire about family interest or placement?
I think a lot can be said. I mean, at this point, you can say telephone works both ways. I mean, if they were interested, they could have reached out. They could have made an effort not only to me, to CPS, to you, to anybody. And the fact lies that they didn't. They didn't. So if it was...
How do you know that? How do you know that for sure? Did the caseworker tell you that there were some inquiries?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. How do I know that they didn't out? Or how do I know that?
Right. Because if they've talked to me, they've talked to other attorneys, if they talked to the caseworkers, you wouldn't know that unless you spoke to us or you spoke to them about it.
I've spoken to Hector and I've also spoken to Claire, and they haven't spoken to me. They never reached out.
And you've heard the testimony today that Mr. Browning is saying that he did speak to Hector, he did speak to Madeline Miller, he did ask to be considered, he did want to be involved. He did keep in touch with what the ongoings of the case and was aware of it, but he's been led to believe that he wasn't even to be considered.
I did hear his testimony, but I also have spoken with Hector and I have not, neither one of us has heard from the grandparents. So I think it's convenient timing that now, a week before the case is decided, that all of a sudden they're reaching out, they're expressing interest, but I did not hear from them until literally this week. And I mean, that's the facts.
Is it your understanding that family should be the first option to be considered?
Absolutely. Placement is usually with family or relatives, but in this case, again, I think there are serious safety concerns to place them with family. In the family being the grandparents. The grandparents allowed the situation to happen more than once in their home. And if their testimony is accurate, they were oblivious to it. So who's protecting the children?
Did you also hear the testimony of Mr. Browning that the reason why Ashley Hutton wasn't evicted was because evicting her would also evict her four children that they had no place to go to?
So is that a reason to allow your children to be exposed to methamphetamines? If you'll do absolutely anything in
Objection argumentative. I'm the one that's asking the questions here. So do you understand that Mr. Browning, like I said, was protecting children, not necessarily always his children, but also Miss Hutton's children from at least providing a roof over their head? Maybe it wasn't.
I understand that, but that is a different case.
No further questions.
Ms. Cummings?
No questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Mystic, anything else?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Ms. Tina, when did you go to the home?
I went yesterday. Are you talking about the home for the grandparents?
The Browning. Yes, ma'am.
I went yesterday.
And had you ever been before that?
No, I was instructed not to due to the chemical exposure.
Okay. Were you on the prior cases, prior to removal cases?
No, ma'am, I was not. No, Your Honor. But I have read the files.
Do you know from, okay, if you just said something, from reading the files in the prior cases, I don't know, I don't remember this. Do you know if either of the parents went to inpatient treatment before?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
The parents are shaking their head no, so I guess that would mean no, huh? Would you take their word for it?
I would.
They probably know, right? Okay. Just for the record, why do we have do we have middle names? Why do we have all these different names than the names I have listed on? I don't have middle names in my file. I just have first and last. Why do the boys have middle names?
I don't know. I just think it's kind of like a pet name sort of thing. Like, I mean, I know my nephew, for example, we call him Bubba as well, and it's not his legal name. So,
okay, I got Bubba, but one of them's Dylan. Hold on, Miss Pollock. Did they have those names? Let's just say pet names, as you said it, going in to the jewels, or did they come up after the jewels?
Going in. And Jules have honored that. I think Dylan has been kind of like a dill pickle thing. Like that might be where that came from. I've heard that. It's cute. Bubba, I don't know where it came from, but again, I don't even know where it came from with my nephew. That's just what we call him. And then Sean is Sean. So that one didn't change.
Just making sure, because sometimes, we have kids and they go into placement and placement changes names, but that did not happen here, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions? No. Okay, Ms. Mystic, next witness.
No witnesses.
Okay.
Further.
Anybody have any more witnesses? Okay, I'm happy to hear from everybody. Mr. Shermer, you may begin.
Judge, today we're asking that the parental rights of each of the parents be terminated. I believe the evidence that you've heard has shown that we can terminate them under several different grounds. Despite the fact that aggravated circumstances were granted, you still allowed them to work a service plan. They've failed to complete that service plan. Additionally, I feel like they have constructively abandoned the children who have been in the care of the department for more than 6 months. The department has, like we just said, offered them a service plan. They failed to complete it. Their visits have been interrupted by incarcerations and due to failed drug tests. And as the testimony also showed today, they have not demonstrated an ability to provide a safe environment for the children. Going back to the reason for the removal, each of the parents admitted that they were using methamphetamines at the time of the removal. They don't deny that there's a great chance that the reason the children tested positive was due to exposure from them. They testified that they don't know how the children tested positive, but they acknowledged they were using in the home at the likely time that the children were exposed. And so therefore, we're asking that their parental rights be terminated based on the fact that they engaged in conduct that endangered the children or exposed them to an endangering environment that would not benefit their physical or emotional well-being. We're asking that the department be named the permanent managing conservator of the children and that the placement remain as is. We're asking that you not consider any placement to the paternal grandparents. It's one of those deals where, as Miss Mystic really hit on, they should have been jumping up and down from the beginning saying, I want my grandkids, and they didn't do that. They showed up late. And I don't think that returning the children to that home based on the history would be a safe environment. So we're asking that they not be placed with the grandparents.
Thank you. Ms. San Miguel?
Your Honor, I'm asking to not terminate the rights of the parents, and I'm also asking for any alternative placement to keep considering the paternal grandparents as possible placement in the future. For one, the department has never made any good faith efforts to have a completion of service plan, to have services from day one. Ms. Mystic was saying, oh, these two are going to do everything right. They're going to do the plan, but it still doesn't matter. I'm still not going to allow the kids to go home, still not going to consider anything else. I mean, they were not willing to consider anything from day one. And that was the same thing from Mr. Burgos, from the investigator, from the caseworker. They just weren't going to believe anything because there was some perception that they had that was unproven to date that Mr. Browning is a drug dealing, gang affiliated member because of the shooting, and it kind of put, some things together, made some, assumptions and, presumed a lot of things that they have not proven to date. I mean, there are other explanations. We provided reasonable explanations for all of those situations. The second thing is that family placement has not been fully explored. You've heard from the beginning that they were advised that they were not to be considered as family placement, that they were never considered as options. And that's against the code. That's against the what we're supposed to be doing is looking into family placement at each and every step of it. It's not just at the very beginning, and we're not considering them again at every hearing, every time. They should have been considered. Now, a lot of times, and you've heard testimony from Mr. Browning in today's trial that he wasn't fully truthful with his dad. Had he been fully truthful, then his dad probably would have done more, said more, stepped up more, been a little bit, more active. I believe he has done some steps. He has talked to some people, but he also wasn't fully aware of the situation, as well as, Miss Polk, who, like I said, had not tested positive for meth since the initial testing, was doing well, was completing services, went to rehab. So there really wasn't any need for her to push for more placement, family placement, other consideration as a plan B at that point, until everything happened with Mr. Browning. So it wasn't until then that it became a bigger obstacle. But family should have been considered at every step of the the process, and it wasn't. And you've heard from CASA, from the caseworker, from the ad litem, that they were not considered. They often, like I said, there was, I understand the home was not safe, but I think that more could have been done, should have been done, phone calls, public meeting. They didn't even get them to complete the caregiver form and run a background check. that's basic on anybody, just even considering a visitation or a phone call, or just completing that form to get some information on them and their backgrounds. They didn't even care to ask if they had any CPS history, criminal history, or if they had financial means. They didn't ask them anything. They didn't care. They didn't take not a single step to look at other family options as an alternative, and that goes against the code. The last thing is that for them to be found to terminate their rights, we would need clear and convincing evidence, and I don't think that we have that here. And I'm asking that you take all of that in consideration, the efforts from my client in her service plan. It hasn't been perfect, and there's been some blips along the way, but I think she's shown that it is possible. And like I said, and even if she's not ready at this point, family placement should be an option, and that she may be, considered at another time down the road, as well as that she's, taken steps, and she's just a month and a half away, or it's a semester and a half away from completing her education, and can be employable and on her feet and able to provide a safe home. And so we just ask that you take all of that into consideration today.
Okay, thank you, Ms. San Miguel. Ms. Cummings?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would just to save time, everything that Joanne said, and then I would just add in that this case has been rushed to termination from the very start. We have time right now left in this case that we can look at the grandparents, that the family can be explored. Mom has been very adamant that she has not used any alcohol. Are there any medical conditions that could cause positive alcohol in urine? No one's explored anything or looked for any alternative solution, because from the very start, these parents were bad parents and they don't need to have their kids, and their rights should be terminated. And we need to look beyond that, because it's not just these parents' rights that are being terminated, it's also the grandparents. And that grandfather that spoke, I don't know that if he would ever get approved for placement, but it's severing his relationship with his grandchildren. There's a whole lot more on the line than just putting these kids and keeping them with another family. There are options that need to be explored, and we have time. We don't have to rush this.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Hope, Mr. Brownie, you can't speak now. We're doing the lawyer stuff. Sorry. You can talk to your lawyer later, sir. Miss Mystic?
Judge, I think, Miss San Miguel, Miss Cummings speak the truth that there could have been a lot more done. And I think in the first case, with the oldest grandchild, Brack, being removed and placed with a family friend, kiddo came back. Second case, children placed with the Jewels, and we had them come back recommended in 6 months. Went back and got out of the case, I want to say March of 23. And we get back in number 3, second case, children tested positive for meth. In the second case, not in 23, 2022. 2024, levels that are very high. 2 of these children test positive. Now, I don't know, nor can I say in closing that Frank Browning caused his home to get shot up. But I gotta tell you, he went to the house. This was his testimony. Went to the house to look at a used car of some people, and the house gets shot that night. The credibility of Stephanie Pauk is non-existent, Judge. She testified under oath today. I was in the bedroom with the children. I think you asked it, Judge. I was reading to the children. I passed out. Not saying she passed out from drinking. She fell asleep in the recliner. My children were in there sleeping. Mr. Browning testifies. Where were the children? Well, I had my grandson in my lap in the living room in my recliner. The truth is very hard to come for Stephanie Polk. That second case, grandparents are in the system. I don't know if the court recalls, they were at a hotel at one point, and Mr. Browning was present during hearings, talking, working to get his two kids, his son and daughter-in-law, to get these children back, and they got them back in 6 months. And I will tell you, at the beginning of this case, when we got aggravated circumstances, I said, they're going to check the boxes, and I'm not going to be able to recommend. Joanne San Miguel is correct. I said that. But I sure heard from Leanna Sina, your CASA. It's the first time she's involved. And she came in and even sent an email requesting longer visits. And we all agreed. But I'm sure most everybody in this room has heard this. Actions speak louder than words. As a grandparent myself, and notice nobody said to this grandfather, why didn't you just hire a lawyer? Because we all understand that's very hard. It's very expensive. And I never said that, but I could sure make myself known, and he can make himself known as well. That's one thing about him. He could make himself known. He could have driven to the CPS office and camped out. Y'all aren't considering me. I've kicked out Stephanie. My son's a drug addict. He's in jail. Stephanie can't live here. She let my kids get tested positive. But I honestly believe, Judge, that they blame Ashley Hutton. And I have said this over and over. She wasn't in that home during that second case, and those babies tested positive. And one of the things I said at the beginning is I made a mistake in recommending them to go home the second time, and it would take you, Your Honor, to do it. I mean, I don't have that power, but to make that recommendation. I truly believe that we are going to have a child die if they went back into that home. I don't know, from drug use. You heard the comparisons of these children, of how they came into care, and look how they have thrived. The Jewels want to adopt. We have a forever family. And Mr. Browning, to his credit, said they're safe there. I don't think I could ever say that these children would be safe in that house. I believe that the best interests of the children or for the parental rights to be terminated and the department to have permanent managing conservatorship. I think it's even under aggravated circumstances, Mr. Browning couldn't stay clean, and switching addictions is a huge thing. I think the court even made as part of the standing order, because when people stop using their drug of choice or stop using drugs, and they're checking the boxes, because what we hope for is when you're in therapy, what is the cause that I'm going to that drug, that bottle, all those addictions that are out there, sex, drugs, all of those things that people turn to. What is causing that? Have we heard? I haven't heard any testimony other than she's getting a college education. She's a good mom. She told you under oath, I didn't allow my kids to go around anything unsafe. 3 removals and your children test positive for meth. You test positive for meth. And then we have over 5 positive ETG tests for alcohol. And that's not just drinking one at Thanksgiving, a hard seltzer. There is some serious drinking going on for her to test positive for all of those. And I will tell the court, during one of our hearings, when she appeared on camera, I asked the department to please send her for an alcohol test because I thought she looked like she had been drinking. And that's one of the ones that was positive. Not to try to get her. I want the light bulb to go off just for their health, truly. But I don't think we're there. I don't think we're there. And actions do speak louder. She's still living in that home. She's painting that home. This is my room. This is where the children's room's going to be. This is where Ashley's room was. This is the playroom. There's no intent there. And I will tell you, even if there was, I don't think these grandparents, as Leanne said, this was going on right under their nose. And I think she was truthful when she said, Mr. Browning, because I was happy to hear him say when he testified that he used, because they've been slow to testify to that. He talked about, I slipped, I went back to it. And I think when he told Leanna that he had paraphernalia in that house, that was true. I'm not saying the grandparents knew what it was. I don't know. But I think we'll lose a child if they go back to that home. That's all I have, Judge.
Okay, thank you. Y'all, before we close today, I forgot to do this at the beginning of the case. Schools are closed down here. Highways are closed. I mean, you know, they recommended nobody go anywhere because of the weather conditions. And I had a burn-it docket also today. So we'll have to Zoom. Was everybody in agreement that we heard this via Zoom today? Yes. Yes. And just also for the record, when we closed on 1/6/25, it was agreed that we reset this court date till today, also via Zoom, right, y'all? Is that correct? Everybody's shaking their head.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I thought so, but I just wanted everybody to get it on the record. Okay, y'all, I had page after page after page of really copious notes I've taken. And I've taken not just what Mr. Stevens has taken. I have page after page of exhibits I need to review. So I'm not going to make a ruling today. Now I'm going to take a break and I will review everything tonight and I will send y'all a ruling tonight. Okay. So parents, just check with your lawyers later and y'all have now I go to bed really late. I can't tell you when it's going to be, but I'll work on it tonight and get everybody a ruling. Okay. And Mr. Stevens, I'll CC Ms. Greenwald because I don't have your email address. Okay. Well, hold on. I don't know if your lawyers want y'all to talk. Ms. Cummings, do you want Mr. Browning to say anything?
I mean, what do you need, Frank?
I just wanted to state that
Frank, you already testified. That's it. Let the judge just make her ruling.
okay. All right.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Ms. Pollock, I'm sure your lawyer would advise you the same. Right, Ms. Samuel? Or do you want your client? Yeah. Hold on.
No, I was going to tell her that I'll call her right after court and we'll talk.
Okay. Sorry, that was
Okay.
Okay. I thought it was her. Okay. 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 Well, thank you, everybody. Thank y'all for being considerate of each other and everybody's time and the court reporter. And Ms. Cummings, whichever way we go today, I don't know yet, but if we stay in, we stay out, whatever. Have you talked to Mr. Browning about your representation situation?
I have not, especially since I was going to be able to cover today. I think depending on how things go, we'll figure that one. We'll figure that one out.
Okay. Well, since I opened the door, do y'all want to go to breakout room real quick?
That's fine.
Sorry. Okay. Okay.
No, you're fine.
Okay. I think I'd rather y'all do that now and we just get that done. So
Yeah, it saves me a trip to the jail.
yeah, jail, don't let Mr. Browning go yet. We need to talk. He needs to stay on a little bit longer. Mr. Stevens, this doesn't need to be on the record. So thank you for reporting for us. And I'll get this to y'all later today.